Hello everybody, welcome to the World AI Only Free-for-All Challenge. This is part 7. And before we begin, as usual, we are going to do a quick recap of the previous episode for those of you who are new to the series. Most recently, Germany has lost their capital of Berlin to the French, who are still moving in on the last German city of Hamburg, modern-day Kaliningrad, Russia. And what else do we have here for you guys? Well, we have the very start of the world's first air force over here in Persian Carthage. And what else we got? So, last episode, the Soviet Union has conquered pretty much the majority of Scandinavia, modern-day Scandinavia, with the exception of Copenhagen, which is, I guess, now southwest and South Norway and southwest Sweden. What else we got here? We also have, I believe that was the most major exchange of land that transpired in the previous episode. Of course, we do have a massive military buildup over here in Southeast Asia on the part of Persia. And you know what? Korea is also starting to amass some military as well. Very scary, considering we have Great War infantry on both sides. Of course, we got some anti-aircraft guns and infantry on the Persian side, which is really scary. I mean, Persia is definitely the most advanced civilization at this point. When you're more advanced than Korea, that's really saying something. Of course, Australia and Oceania very much in the Persian sphere of influence. Let's go east across the Pacific, where in South America, much as it was the last time we've been here, the entire continent, with the exception of the Andean range, the Andean mountains, and kind of like modern-day Ecuador/Colombia, is colonized by Venezuela. And Venezuela has quite a bit of resources. Of course, they're a little bit outdated, though. I mean, they're using riflemen as opposed to Great War infantry or even infantry, and they still have lancers, or I guess, and for their case, it's a Lanaro. If I don't speak Spanish, obviously. Can't pronounce that. Let's go north into the Shoshone-held North America. Really, the Shoshone are just expanding relatively slowly now that they have control over most of North America. There's a city that has two citizens. I don't really remember that ever coming up. Perhaps it's new. But once again, the United States, led by George Washington, is very much kind of on the brink of defeat, definitely on the brink of extermination. We'll see how long it takes for the Shoshone to wipe out Washington, but honestly, I mean, if you look at the army over here, it shouldn't take too long, unfortunately for them. Of course, they also have Comanche riders. Going west into Alaska and Siberia, the situation hasn't changed too much. It seems that Philadelphia has yet another rifleman to defend, and Japan just turtling. They don't really have a lot of cities. They're still probably the least technologically advanced civilization in this game, unsurprisingly. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue where we left off. If there's any way for me to pull up the active wars that are going on right now, that would be great. Let's see if we can find it underneath. No. Well, let's look at the score, too, because I know if you guys want to take a look at the score, there's only 2 civs above 1,000 points. That would be Persia and the Soviet Union. Definitely both civs to look out for, as well as the Shoshone and Kilwa. So those will be the main contenders. Korea, of course, also in this list. The rest of these civilizations, honestly, are just relatively unimpressive at this point. I mean, France is starting to kick themselves into gear. Of course, their lack of major population centers is going to hurt them technologically. Although in West Africa, we do have 2 very large colonies. However, Kilwa, with their African ambition of perhaps irredentism or perhaps taking the continent for themselves, we'll see how that develops. But let's go ahead and end the turn and see where this episode takes us. So over here in Berlin, outside Berlin, we've got a unit that was loyal to Germany, that was trying to take back Berlin, that was probably shut down by the French. France is in firm control of, I guess, this region of modern-day Germany. And Hamburg is basically the last holdout for the German people. I do remember, however, for those of you who are supporting Germany in this challenge, do not fret. There were two, yes, there they are. There are two German settlers, actually, heading east, perhaps to join their friends, the Japanese, in a Siberian exile of sorts. Perhaps that will allow them to kind of settle themselves to safety. I don't really know. But the fact of the matter is that Germany is in a very dire situation if they do not move. And remember when I said that the only planes, the First Air Force, belonged to Persia? Well, the Soviet Union now has constructed some planes. I'm not sure what type of variants there are. I know that, like I said, I'm not too familiar with Soviet planes and tanks, but I think they're called like the SU something or other. Or the Tupolev. Yeah, the Tupolev, there you go. TU something or other. Tupolev planes. They're pretty famous. I think those might have actually been the jet planes, the passenger jet planes, actually. So I'm not sure if that's actually what they have right now with the bombers and fighters. So we're going to go west over here because, as I predicted, the Shoshone are going to pounce on George Washington, trying to basically take all of this land, this fertile land that has has no luxury resources, but it's got cattle, so that's always nice. And what else can they get out of America if they were to fully annex them? We've got a dearth of luxury resources. Mainly just Los Angeles controls the luxury resources at this point. So let's go ahead and watch the Shoshone as they make a victory lap through George Washington. We're going to zoom in on the carnage over here, while also keeping an eye on Germany as well. We will keep an eye on Königsberg, modern-day Kaliningrad. I forgot what they named it. Maybe it's Hamburg in this game, but you get the idea. Look at this. Potokello has declared war on Stalin. Okay, literally everybody's declaring war on Stalin. I don't really understand why. Especially with the Shoshone. I mean, what could the Shoshone possibly gain by declaring war on Stalin? Perhaps they're trying to take Baku, this Azerbaijani city over here, but I really don't know. So we're going to go over to Korea, where we have a country that's at war with the Soviet Union. So we're probably going to see some action over here in central Siberia. Of course, Persia is now expanding into Central Asia. They have a new city, Turungtep, that has it's a pretty salty city, but no natural growth, unfortunately for them. But as I said earlier, the German settlers are making their way to the east. One is kind of surrounded by the Soviet Union. The other one is on the border of Central Asia that's dividing the Soviet Union and Persia. Let's go to the west, where we have a little bit of action over here outside of Berlin. Mainly, my prediction here is that France does not have enough units to take over Hamburg. So thus, Königsberg will belong to the Germans for the time being. Let's go over here, the Great Lakes, outside of Washington. And look at this. I mean, nobody is sparing Stalin. Everybody's jumping on top of the fuck Stalin bandwagon. It seems that perhaps socialism in one country is failing Mr. Stalin, and capitalist/fascist world revolution will no longer occur, unfortunately, for them. Of course, just a reminder, Soviet Union is, of course, fascist in this playthrough. Don't ask me why. You would assume they'd pick order with the amount of cities they have, but I find that very rarely the AI makes rational choices. In fact, they pretty much never do. Let's go over here into Africa, where, and I believe modern day, I guess this is Rwanda and South Sudan. We have the Soviet colonies of, not going to even pronounce those, but we have some units, some Swahili units that are outside ready to screw everything up. We'll see if they are successful in, taking over these cities. Of course, we just saw the unique ability of the Soviet Union in effect. That was the Iron Curtain. You guys saw how 10 points were deducted from these units. And tremendous news, ladies and gentlemen. The very first civilization in the game, which was Persia, Darius, has completed the atomic bomb. And this is scary. This is incredibly scary. It's actually scarier than if Iran had nuclear weapons in real life. Because, I mean, look at the size and scope of Iran. I mean, they can't even nuke Israel if they wanted to. I mean, in this particular world. So who will they aim their nukes at? That's a good question. I'm guessing probably Korea. Maybe not. We'll see. But enough of that, enough of my blabbering. Let's go over to North America, where Washington is blockaded and just all around in a very bad location. Pretty soon North America will belong just to the Shoshone. Let's go over to South America, where the Soviet city of Baku is okay so far. We've got another settler from Venezuela heading south. Interesting. Let's go into Asia, where Korea is at war with the Soviet Union. I don't really see anything particularly special over here, so we're going to skip that. And let's go over to here, where the Soviet Union's also at war with Shoshone, but it doesn't look like they're sending any men over into Siberia. Of course, Japan kind of controls this particular area. And I kind of feel bad for Japan. I mean, that's a really, really cold area to be in. I've heard that the weather over there is just absolutely horrendous. I never really want to be involved in that. So let's go back over to America, where we hope that Washington has fled the capital of Washington. Because if he hasn't, he's about to be, you know, probably executed. Or converted, even worse, to the Shoshone cause. Those, you know, barbaric Protestant Shoshone units. Because we all know that Native Americans, you know, they're barbaric, and they follow this strange religion of Protestantism. So the Hindu United States is having a problem over here, keeping up. Of course, Washington will probably fall next turn. And so will Chicago. I mean, look at this. They're getting hit by two different fronts over here. Of course, Shoshone is treating Quebec territory like a clown car. They're just sending all their men through there. They don't really care. Zero fucks given. Let's go over to Europe, where Berlin is still damaged, unsurprisingly, and the land is bleeding over here. And let's go to Soviet Africa, where the combined defensive units of their artillery, cavalry, and Great War infantry, combined with the Iron Curtain of autocracy, is keeping the African Sultanate at bay. Good for the Soviets, bad for the African units. And I believe this will be the turn as we zoom up for the action shot of Washington being felled by the Great Shoshone Empire. Very unfortunate for Washington, and indeed the Friends of Liberty. This is kind of a low blow for me, especially considering my home state of Texas was wiped out pretty much in the second episode, and here it is, you know, United States, who just lost their capital. We're pretty much on the fuck America bandwagon in this particular universe, it seems, unfortunately. But this will be interesting, as it's kind of a exercise in, well, what if the Shoshone, or really any Native American tribe, was able to band together, form a confederacy, and overthrow European colonials and colonialist governments, and kind of reverse the tide here. I wonder if those pasty white politicians of Washington are being placed as we speak into reservations, into Shoshone-controlled reservations. Yeah, that's not really politically correct. Okay, let's go over here to Soviet Africa, where the city of Novosibirsk is being surrounded. I believe, I don't speak Russian again, but I believe that means New Siberia. I know Novo means new. It's pretty much a cognate, I believe, of English. Maybe it's not, I don't know. You guys can tell me. I know that Novo means new and Stary means old, though, because I used to play a lot of DayZ, which is a zombie game, which takes place in a post-Soviet state, so learning Cyrillic is actually an incredibly important thing to do, as all the signs are in Cyrillic. So, let's go back over here to the west, where oh my god, look at this, guys. As a term of peace, I wish we could pull up the peace terms back on this, but Washington literally gave up all of its cities. There's not a single city on the eastern seaboard that belongs to Washington anymore, but instead they have the city of Philadelphia. And you know what would be really funny right now? It would be really funny if Japan was to take Philadelphia. And I mean, I don't mean that in a mean way. It would just be a bit ironic. Let's go over here to the east, or Central Siberia, rather, where Germany is kind of confused. It looks like they're heading towards perhaps China or Mongolia, I guess, modern Mongolia. And we got another unit up here, modern day East Siberia. Perhaps he's going to Vladivostok, we don't really know. Or no, hold on. Vladivostok's already controlled by somebody, I think. Probably Korea. Anyways, let's go to the west, where France and Germany are still at war, although it's a relatively uneventful phase in history. Much like, for those of you who are familiar with World War II history, France and Germany they each constructed a line of fortifications on their border. French, of course, just constructed the Maginot Line, and the Germans constructed the Siegfried Line. It almost looks like the future of European warfare will certainly involve a demilitarized zone, or a demilitarized sphere of influence, rather. And I'm just waiting for these citadels to pop up like zits over here on this border. Perhaps we'll give it some time. And I didn't realize this before, but yes, England does have quite a big military, and their sea lanes are occupied by all sorts of foreign navy, or naval units, I should say. And even Persia is up here in the North Sea. I don't have any idea why, but they are. And England controls this tiny little tile in Northern Europe. I believe this is modern day like Netherlands, more than likely. So English Netherlands, very interesting. Let's go to the south, where the war for Soviet African colonies is still in effect. Of course, I don't know how anybody will be able to crack a city of 77 defense. That is just beyond me. That is a massive amount of fortifications in a league of probably impossible for these poor little Great War infantry and cannons that the African Swahili Confederation, or rather the Kilwa Sultanate, has provided over here. Although Kilwa has, again, they've got a massive navy. Looks like they're attacking Mabanzo Congo because the Soviet Union's allied with them. And like I said in a previous episode, very historically accurate that the Soviet Union would ally these small little African states. Very, very historically accurate. I think the last example provided was Angola, who was definitely a friend to the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union and the United States during the Cold War had their various spheres of influence in Africa. It wasn't just the Soviet Union. Let's go over here to Central North America, where we've got a bit of a rebel problem for the Shoshone. Maybe they fucked up making reservations for the Americans, and they're starting to strike back. Maybe this is just really vengeance, or rather Montezuma's curse, for conquering two of the great civilizations on their continent. Like I said, it really wouldn't be Montezuma's curse, probably more along the lines of Sam Houston's curse, or George Washington's curse. Of course, for the first time in history, well, I guess for the first time in a few hundred years, because let's be honest, wars and civilization can last for thousands of years. Well, anyways, not gonna beat around the bush. Denmark is at peace with the Soviet Union. Fantastic. Everybody's friends. Everybody's happy. Although Denmark, I mean, they're just a rump state. I mean, they've got an antiquity site and iron. Yeah, they don't have anything. I don't even think they have the economy to support one military unit, much less a army. So we don't care about them. Let's go to the other active war theaters. Perhaps over here in Asia, Korea will be sending some units up to Siberia. And just like that, we have two new German cities, that have decided to, they really picked pretty well. I mean, we've got two luxury resources over here outside of Essen, and Frankfurt's got two instance resources, right, with three outside of its grasp, plus a silver resource. So Germany's still very much in the game. I'm not sure how safe they'll be there, but we'll certainly find out as this game plays through. Of course, Germany's still under siege, as it has been for the majority of its existence. I think there's only been maybe 50 years of peace for Germany. Poor people. I mean, the poor Germans in this game have never had really an opportunity to experience peace. And the English, I think at this point, I mean, I know a lot of you guys are saying that they're insignificant. That might be true, but the English definitely deserve a honorary title for most peaceful nation. As I believe, with the exception of Denmark, they've not declared war upon anybody, or joined anybody else's war, or been declared upon. So, very, very peaceful, pacifistic England, who is just trying to ride out this world AI free-for-all. and keep to themselves. Perhaps that's the most historically accurate way to describing England. You know, of course, they're always invested in foreign interests, but so long as they control Great Britain and Ireland, they can just use their superior navy to keep other land-based powers at bay, just like they always have, and they probably always will in the future, perhaps. I know the existence of the European Union and NATO kind of makes that might seem a little bit unnecessary, but perhaps in the future, you know, if any of these fantasy authors, you know, dystopian societies in the future, like 1984, or like anything like that, maybe society will collapse. Who knows? Really, anybody's game. Of course, Korea is working its way up to Sverdlovsk and Kuybyshev. Let's go with that. So we'll see how that goes. Going south into Soviet Africa. Nothing but just scorched earth, and this is you know, I always try to talk a little bit about history in my videos. I know a few of you guys appreciate that, and I'm cool with that too. Sometimes I don't have a lot to talk about, but this is interesting. I mean, I know that like sometimes I'll go on these large tangents, but the scorched earth tactic for Russia is definitely an historical tactic that's been used and abused by the Russians since the formation of Kievan Rus, which is, I guess, the predecessor of Muscovy, which is in turn the predecessor of the Russian Empire, and then, you know, the Soviet Union, Russian Federation, blah, 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 blah. Well, scorched earth, what they're doing right here, well, obviously in Civilization you can't really do this, but let's just pretend for a second that the Russians burned their own land, which they didn't. You know, of course, the Swahili decided to you know, pick some apples here, pick some bananas here, rape some women over there, and, you know, kill some families over here. Well, let's just pretend that the Soviet Union decided to burn down this territory, as they've done historically. This denies the invading army, in this case the Swahili or the Kilwa Sultanate, Kilwanese Sultanate, of resources and of food. Very, very smart tactic used by Russian leaders throughout its history. I know I've been talking a lot about Russia. I really want to talk about other civilizations too, but unfortunately, in my history classes, I specialized on the Soviet Union and European history. So outside of, you know, French, German, and Persian, and Soviet history, I know pretty much nothing. So, you know, somewhat ironically, I know very little about American history. I just always found it to be incredibly boring. And I mean, a history of a country that's only been around for some, you know, less than 300 years, it's you're not going to have as much of a rich history as these other civilizations do, and that's to be expected. So perhaps I'm being a little bit unfair. Now, where? Okay, I was going to ask where this Venezuelan settler went, and they're just southwest of Caracas. Interesting development. Let's go check out these spheres of influence here. Panama City, owned by nobody. La Venta, of course, going to the Shoshone, as does... Okay, well, Quebec City and Vancouver are surprisingly neutral. And with the exception of a Navy and a Great Admiral, I don't believe America owns any more military units, which is a surprise. That's pretty surprising for me. Of course, Japan's still very much in a mediocre position. And I'm just waiting, honestly, for Korea to desire some living space over here in Central Asia and take out some of these German cities. Perhaps the Persians will make short work of them. And take a look at this. Novosibirsk is under siege, as is Mabanzo Congo. I think at this point, however, Mabanzo Congo falling is far more likely. And look at this. The attrition from Stalin's unique ability looks like it extends into friendly and allied city-states. That is just... Can I call it overpowered? I'm going to call that overpowered. I mean, for a wide civilization like the Soviet Union, that has many cities and vast tracts of land, if anybody gets that reference, good on you. Yeah, for a civilization like that, it almost seems too powerful to have enemy units take 10% of their health every time they end their turn in your territory. That's almost like a citadel, honestly. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Citadel takes off 15 points, so it's like a weaker version of the Citadel, but it affects everybody. That's just so freaking good. I thought there was a percent chance that this would proc or go off, but it looks like it goes off every turn. Of course, next turn, Speaking of turns, Babanzo Congo should fall to the Islamic Kilwa Sultanate. Really the caliph, I guess, of the Islamic Ummah at this point, since Islam has, well, I say it hasn't spread. It's spread a little bit into Persia, actually, definitely historically. However, like I said, I don't really know too much about history outside of Russia, but I will say that the Islam in Iran is definitely different than the Islam that you would get in sub-Saharan, or Northern Africa, I should say. Sub-Saharan Africa is predominantly Christian, with the exception of a few different outliers. But anyways, the Islam that you find in North Africa and Saudi Arabia, for the most part, is Sunni Islam, which is entirely different than the Islam that is practiced by the Iranian majority in modern-day Iran. Of course, modern-day Iran is the modern-day successor, I guess, of Persia, where instead of following Sunni Islam, they follow something that's called Twelver Islam, or it's better known as Shiite Islam, Shia. You call them Shia Muslims. It's pretty interesting. It's a bit different. Of course, the entire, I guess, breakdown of why the Shiites are different than the Sunnis, it all goes down to the succession of the old Rashidun Caliphate that used to exist in modern-day Saudi Arabia and the majority of the Middle East, the first Islamic Caliphate, of course. Well, after the Prophet Muhammad died, the succession was a bit of an issue because Muhammad did not, well, okay, according to some accounts, I guess it depends on who you ask, Muhammad did not designate a successor, and he, just wanted people to kind of figure that out on themselves. He figured, hey, everybody's a Muslim, we're all brothers, I'm sure he'll figure this out. Well, it turns out, unsurprisingly, that humans are human, and it doesn't matter what religion you follow, people hate each other. So, the Muslims, or at least a few of the Muslim factions, broke apart, and they couldn't decide who was to succeed Muhammad. So you had the Shiites who believed that, God, I don't really mean to butcher Muslim history. This is kind of just like an overview. They believed that one guy was more, I guess, what's the word? More of a better pick, I guess, from a dynastic perspective, because he was in some way related to Muhammad. Maybe he was a cousin, maybe it was something else like that. If you guys know, feel free to leave in the comments below. But basically, big schism in Islam between two relatively similar, they are both Muslim countries, are Muslim theologies, Muslim sects, perhaps, Sunni and Shiite believers, but the difference, for instance, between Shiite and Sunni believers is larger than, like, let's say, Protestant and Catholic Christians. Maybe that's more of a applicable example for my audience, or maybe even like Eastern Orthodox. I know a lot of you guys are Russian. You get the idea. So that's a bit interesting. I love to learn about Islam. Definitely a very interesting world religion. Of course, it's the newest Abrahamic monotheistic religion, and this group includes Judaism and Christianity, of course. So enough about religion. Let's go check out the rest of the world map. Hamburg is pulling a really weird technique where they've got like 3 great generals outside of Hamburg. Perhaps they're all ready to surrender. It reminds me of that German general that surrendered outside of Stalingrad, and Hitler called him up and was like, hey, not a single German general throughout all of, thousands of years of German history has ever surrendered, and, you're not going to surrender, you're just going to kill yourself, you're going to commit suicide. And Hitler sent him that message, and the general was just like, you know what, fuck that, I like my life, and I want to keep living. So he surrendered to the Soviet Union. He surrendered his entire army that was under his command outside of modern-day Volgograd, which will be over... and Volgograd will be like somewhere over here, north of the Caucasus. Maybe it's where Leningrad is actually in this game. I don't really know. I'm not Russian. I think it's somewhere over here though, north of the Caucasus. And he surrendered instead of killing himself. And Hitler was pissed, but you know what? Hitler can't say shit because he committed suicide not even 2 years later. So you know what? If you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk, Hitler. And I'm calling you a hypocrite. So if you are in any way offended, Hitler, sorry, didn't realize you escaped to South America and were able to watch this video in 2015. Yeah. I don't know really what I'm getting at here. Let's go to diplomacy. Before I sound off, like always, I will be going over the scores and cultures and really everything of these countries. I wish there was a way that I could organize it by score. There's not. But I'll tell you what's sad is that I almost have more points than Japan, and all I have is a freaking nuclear submarine over here. What the hell is a Korean submarine doing over here, guys? I think our cover is almost blown. This is terrible. I didn't realize that we were going to have you know, Koreans spying on us over here. I thought that I was safe. Well, I'm not. Wow, that's interesting. So let's go to the World Congress. Oh, yep, it's disabled. Completely forgot about that. Turns out the World Congress slows down games. Who would have ever thought? Demographic screen. As usual, Persia is destroying everybody. We're just going to take a look at how much they are destroying everybody. In some respects, almost as 4 times. In other respects, about 3 times as much. And GNP, it's just disgusting. 4 times the amount. Land, they've got vast tracts of land. Soldiers, they are incredibly militaristic. Let's now take a look at the culture victory tab, which somehow has ideologies. And like I said, if I've ever mentioned that civilization is ridiculously confusing when it comes to menus, yes, you can find ideologies in your culture overview. That makes 0 sense for Axis. Thank you very much. So let's take a look at these civilizations. Anybody else surprised that Persia has 59 happiness despite, you know, controlling half of the map? Well, I am. That's incredibly surprising. For the most part, the Order civilizations are happy, with the exception, of course, the notable exception of the Shoshone and Korea. And the only other ideology that's currently in this game is autocracy. And autocracy is experiencing dissidence, as communism proves to be the world ideology that everybody follows. Nobody's opted to choose freedom yet. And that's just sad, because a world without freedom is not a world I'd like to live in. So, thank you guys very much for watching this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly enjoy making these videos. They're proven to be very popular. I think these are quite possibly the most popular concurrent series that I'm currently creating. I guess that was a bit redundant, concurrent, current, same thing. But anyways, I know you guys enjoy these videos. I'm going to be working on making more of them. I know that I've been working on a video approximately every 3 days, but considering the popularity of these videos and the fact that, quite honestly, they don't take very much effort. I mean, I'm just flying around commentating and talking about history while rambling. It takes about 30 minutes out of my time, so you know what? We'll make probably 4 a week. I'm going to shoot for 2 every 2 days instead of every 3 days. So once again, guys, thank you very much for watching. Expect the next one out to be out in about 2 days. So if this uploads, let's see, today is Friday that I'm recording this. Tomorrow's Saturday. It'll be uploaded on Saturday. That's when you guys are watching this. So expect the next one out to be Monday. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment. And I'll see you on the next episode.